Okay, folks, welcome back. We're doing another video. Today I've got a Kolsch for you here. One thing I didn't mention in the other video when I brought up the Father's Day Honey Porter, that was actually an attempt to get a Sam Adams like Honey Porter, and I utilized Brewer's Friend for help with that recipe in general and with this recipe for this Kolsch as well. So I had a lot of help from people on the forum kind of critiquing my recipe and kind of helping me get what I was looking for. So I just want to throw a shout out to a lot of folks out on, you know who you are, out on Brewer's Friend in the forums, putting those recipes up and getting feedback and getting help. And bringing this Kolsch back into a more traditional style Kolsch was nice. This is still on tap. It's delicious. Some classic German hop taste to it. And the Father's Day Porter was a huge success. So again, thanks to folks at Brewer's Friend in the forums helping me hone in recipes. And now on to today's lesson on Brewer's Friend. I brought up a recipe here. It's just a basic extract recipe. And I'm going to show folks how to, if they wanted to brew this, they could either just click brew up here and attempt it, or they could copy it and scale it. Let's say you don't have the ability to do 19 liters, or you just didn't like how the pre-boil size on this was 6 liters, or there were some things you wanted to tweak to the recipe. So we'd go here and we'd copy the recipe. Let's, if we leave this blank, it'll keep it the same name, or you could change it to My White House Honey Porter, whatever you wanted to do. So I'm going to edit this copied recipe. And you see everything's in metric, so let's just say I'm a metric user, and that's one of the reasons I chose this recipe. And I wanted to scale it down from 19 liters to, let's say, 10 liters. You can see they have a pretty small pre-boil usage here, which left them with a very small post-boil, which then they topped up to 19 liters. That's quite a bit. Let's assume that I have the ability to put 10 liters into a fermenter, and I actually have a pot that I can boil up to 10 liters. Let's say it's a 10-liter pot, so I might not boil more than 8 or 9. And then we'll top up from there. So let's go ahead and go to Recipe Tools, and let's scale this first and foremost. And what I want you to pay attention to when you scale it are these numbers here and what happens here, okay? And here. You see these are all nice round numbers, right? If you look down here too, you got like nice round numbers in your steeping grains. So, recipe tools, I'm going to scale. And in this case, you see it just dropped out another way to scale, which is based on efficiency, which is more related to all grain. So we're going to go ahead and type in 10 here, and we're going to scale it. I get an error just because of the boil size. I'm going to hit OK, and I can adjust that. You can see what it did a little wonky here. Let's say I'm going to boil 8 liters. I'll just recalculate that. And there you go. Okay, so that gives me a little bit of headspace so I can avoid a boil over. I could probably attempt 9 if I wanted to, and maybe some of you folks would. But I'm going to base it on 8, and I'll just allow myself to top up with a little bit more cool water, right? So I'm almost half and half there. The next thing you'd want to do is if you have a equipment profile selected, you could do that, right? So I'm just going to leave no equipment profile selected. I can show you how things change once you do that, but you probably want to do that first off before you change anything else, because then it's going to change numbers all over again. Okay, so that would be the first thing you'd want to do. You see how our IBUs here changed from 70 to 87.5? That's because we're using a larger pre-boil gravity, or excuse me, pre-boil gravity, a pre-boil volume, which then dilutes the sugars a bit more, which then gives your IBUs or your hops more utilization ability, right? So you're going to utilize the hops better. So the more you boil with, the better hop utilization you get. But we want that to be back down to what it was before, which is 70. So that's the first thing I'm going to attempt to do. I'm going to go ahead and put in 22. And I'm going to go ahead and put in 6. Notice something else here. They're using whole leaves. You might want to change that to pellets. They're also using a whirlpool. If you don't have the ability to whirlpool or you just don't want to try it, you'd probably want to change that to either a late addition or a dry hop. Okay, so I'm going to leave it as is for now and just pretend that I'm going to be able to buy whole leaf hops and utilize the same methods they're using. So you see that gets us a little bit low. So maybe we wanted this to be 7 grams and we wanted this to be, oh, that really, they got some big utilization down there. Let's keep that 6 and we'll just up this to 23. And let's make that 25. All right, that should get us closer to our 70. There you go. And then you can see here, we've got these numbers. If I were using this, I'd probably put it in grams. The nice thing about metric, though, is you know that's 260. So you don't even really have to. A little different when you're using ounces and pounds. You could even change this to grams. It'd be 1,320. So down here, though, you see we get, again, some of those decimal places. Unless you have the ability to measure that way, you probably just want to round these numbers either up or down, whatever you learned in grade school or whatever you feel like doing. Okay. In this small of a scale, so to speak, this minuscule rounding isn't going to hurt your recipe whatsoever, especially in the steeping grain category. Now you see this used to be 1.061. This was the same as it is now, and this obviously was a little bit higher. We could adjust this to, let's say this will probably get us in the 60 to 61 range. Let's see. There you go. That gets us a little bit closer. Obviously, it drops our IBUs just a hair. We could try bumping that up again if we wanted to. Boom. Look at that. Very close now. And that's pretty much, I mean, that's the way you scale a recipe. There's the program itself does a pretty solid job scaling. There's just a few things that you've got to tweak once the scale goes through. And it's kind of nice usually to keep like if I was searching the recipe right here, right, like it might have been nice to like go ahead and keep one of these open so you can see some of those stats. So that when you go back, you see those stats there, you could try to like nail that same thing. Now you can see in this person's brew log, they were shooting for 1.013. They ended up with 1.008. So a lot more attenuation, a bit more. They must have been off on their OG. Yeah, see, they were a little bit low on their OG. So these might be some things to take note of. If they were that low with what they had, maybe, and you don't want to be in that lower range, you might want to up, some of these numbers and get a better feel for it. If those numbers, as small as they were, don't bother you, then go for it. So that beer is going to end up, obviously a little drier than was originally anticipated. And that's kind of funny to see with extract because usually you go the other way. But you can see down here, this is the yeast they used. Maybe you change that. Maybe you can't even get your hands on that. You might want to change it to something you do have. I mean, it's a porter, so like SO4 probably. I like dry yeast. So maybe that's something you consider. There's an English ale yeast strain, SO4. Maybe you use SO5 through and through like a lot of people do. You could change that, and then you could also adjust. This is average attenuation is what you're going to be basing it off. Say you use this yeast a lot and you already know you get 77. You might put that in there, and you'll see how it changes your recipe. But that's it in a nutshell. I did want to take a moment and go ahead and do a I wanted to do U.S. gallons, or U.S. so that you could see it in that regard. And then I also wanted to do an all grain. So I'm going to go ahead and open this link in a new tab. I'll clear out some of these other tabs. I'll open it twice. I am going to click here and copy the recipe. It just so happens I have one open so that I can see my stats this time without having to go back. I can click continue. And I'm going to edit the copied recipe. It's going to take a minute for this to come up. On this one, since it is US, I can go ahead and select, and because it's all grain, I can go ahead and select my RoboBrew. for an piece of equipment, so you'll be able to see that. The first thing I want to do though is I want to scale it. I have these numbers open on another tab, so now you can see there's two ways to do this here. You have your efficiency and you have your batch size. You might need to do both, so you might double scale it. At this point, I actually get 75%, so I'm going to leave it for now. I'm going to go from 11 gallons to 5.5. And I'm going to hit the scale button. And we can see this kind of scaled over a little smoother, right? 0.38. Let's just drop that in ounces so that we can see what it is. 6.1. I might round that down to 6. You can see they never put in any mash guidelines other than they had a target temp of 152. You can use your buttons in this area to help you figure out what you need, or you could do it yourself and just crunch the numbers. 10 pounds of grain. If you're going to mash it this mash thickness, or you're going to use a different one. You can see my mash pH here is also high. I'll show you guys how to adjust that as well in some simple ways and some more difficult ways. But for now, I think the first thing, like I said, I wanted to do was go ahead and change it from no equipment to RoboBrew, because that's going to give me my boil off rate. And then I already know that I don't usually go up to 7.5. I typically do 7. You can see that already recalculated there for me based on my boil off rate. This has a 60-minute boil time. I always use 90. Just become a habit. Yes, it lengthens my brew day, but I tend to like the results. So, I mean, this is a lot of Pilsner, so I might put that to 90 anyway, just because of the amount of Pilsner malt, but I'm going to leave it for now. And this one actually, like you can see, it did pretty good. There's nothing I really have to tweak here, except for the fact that I have that pH. So I bet you if I add, well, let's change this to milliliters. If the easiest way to do this would be just to add some lactic acid. Citric acid, if you don't have that on hand. Most people, though, I think use lactic. I think 4 would probably help. So lactic acid, I use 4 milliliters. Yeah, look, my mash pH dropped to 5.47. Let's see, IBU-wise, did it convert over well enough? So IBUs here were a little bit higher. I might want to change something in my recipe. Looks like all this pretty much went over pretty well. A little bit lower on the ABV. Let's see here. You know, for me, I think I'd leave it at 33. I wouldn't even really want to go to 36. But I bet the best way to do that would be to round this. Just because I like round numbers, I'd probably round this up. Get a little more of that sass flavor there. And didn't do anything for me. Let me guess. They have no utilization here. No, I didn't. Probably just because it's so low. So I would assume then that I'd have to put, if it's all sass, I guess a nice round number would be to add here. IBUs are jumping all over the place. 60 minutes. Wow, I'm not jumping at all here. No, I guess there's a reason I'd want to be at this number. Anyway, I wonder, they have such a low alpha acid. I wonder if, there you go, it's way high. There's my number, 2.5. So there you go. This should be pretty easy to do just using your mash calculator here or clicking on your water requirements. If you want to click on water requirements, you got to save the recipe first. I could do the math relatively easy here as well if I was going to base it on this. We'd be talking probably 4.5 gallons. And that might just be something I put in. Maybe I wanted to, I'd have to probably really crunch the numbers. So it was 10 pounds and I was doing 1.5, that'd be 15 quarts. Probably be closer to 18 quarts at 1.75. 18 quarts is 4.5 gallons. And this obviously is giving me some murkiness here. Change that over. There. That should do it. And then I'd probably add a sparge here that they didn't include, and I'd probably just bank on 5 gallons, and then just sparge until I hit the number I wanted, which would be 7 gallons. So I always like to have a little bit more in case I need it, but I usually don't. So I always end up with a little bit in the pot. Again, I'm still honing in my numbers. I just always tend to err on the side of caution. My sparges usually take about 20 to 30 minutes. And I typically use 172 as a sparge nap. So there you go. That was a real simple, easy conversion. So that's how you scale recipes. Hopefully that was helpful, and hopefully you enjoyed tuning in. Sorry if it was longer than usual. 16 minutes, I don't think it's too bad. Thanks for listening.